notice that a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation is commencing at 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, December 19, 2019. Item number 1, roll call.
I will now call this meeting to order. Present are Mr. Sanchez, Mr. Sevier, Mr. Cardenas, myself, Mr. Wolf, Ms. Duran, and Mr. Schaefer are not. I know Ms. Duran is running a few minutes late, but she is on her way.
Item number 2, public comment period.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we may want to excuse those that are not going to be present, just for the record.
As of right now, I don't know who's coming besides Ms. Duran. She did send me a text message. But as
Nico
far-
Schaefer is also excused.
He is excused. Okay.
Okay.
Item number 2.
Item number 2, public comment period. There's no public comment. Item number 3, consent agenda items. Consideration and action, if any, on the following items. A, approval of the minutes of regular board meetings, regular meeting November 21st, 2019.
Mr. Wolf is here. Do we have any questions or comments about the minutes from the November 21st meeting?
I move to approve the minutes.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Item B, approval and acknowledgement of invoices and miscellaneous claims.
Any questions of invoices or claims? Item B, comments? I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Financials, item number 4, discussion and acknowledgement of GBIC financials.
Chairman, board members, I'll briefly go over the financials. Please stop me if you have any questions. On the first page, we have a financial overview. Basically, we refer this as a dashboard of the financials. Top left-hand corner, you have your balance sheets composed of assets less liabilities, net assets of $15.2 million. Net income, you have your revenues less expenditures, gives you currently through the month of November a deficit of $49,000. Bottom left-hand corner gives you a designation between your undesignated and designated fund balances. Detail of that I'll go over right now. But basically, under designated, you have $8 million. Undesignated, $8 million. Designated, $7.2 million. Total, $15.2 million. On the bottom right-hand corner, on the sales tax collection, that slide is not updated. I'll go over an updated version. That will be in page 7. So please disregard that one. On page 2, statement of financial condition, your assets composed of cash, investments, or receivables, 15.2. Liabilities, $15,000. Fund balances broken down to designated and undesignated. You get a total liability, equity, and fund balance of $15.2 million. Page 3 gives you a monthly comparison of your expenditures month to month. Page 4 gives you a comparative statement of revenue changes in fund balance, which also includes the budget and actuals. On actuals, revenues, $902,000. Operating expenditures, $143,000. Incentive expenditures of $809,000. Total expenditures, $952,000, which will be an excess of expenditures over revenues in the amount of $49,900. Page 5 gives you a monthly sales tax comparisons on a monthly basis, how much is collected each of the periods. Page 6 gives you a bar graph of the sales tax collections, actual collections from fiscal year 2011 through fiscal year 2019 and through the month of November 2020, and also gives you a budget on there. Page 7, this is the one that giving you a correct update for the first 2 months of the year. Sales tax compares between fiscal year 2019 and 2020, the first 2 months. We have an increase, a net increase of 2.17% over the same period as last year, or $18,263. Page 18 is just the sales tax comparison between Brownsville, McAllen, and Harlingen. Page number 9, you get your, this is the, under the incentive programs, this is a detail of all the incentive programs that are out there, a total of $5.7 million. Non-incentive programs, you have a total of $1.5 million. These non-incentive relate to the amounts that are budgeted for reimbursement to the city on some debt issuance that the city has done. Total unreserved and designated, $7.2 million. Page 10 gives you a bar graph comparing the budget to actuals on all those incentive programs. Bottom line gives you the percentage completed in all those. Similar on page 11 on the non-incentive programs. On page 12 gives you the unreserved, undesignated. Basically, these are the funds that are available as of November 30th. You start off with your beginning fund balance, you add your revenues, decrease your expenditures, reduce the designated amount of commitments that you've had, and you have an undesignated fund balance of $8 million. Page 13 just gives you the amounts of receivables through the month of September, through the month of November. Page number 14 basically is a detail of all the incentives that are listed on page 19. It gives the actual amount that was awarded, how much has been dispersed, and how much been reduced in a summary basis. Page number 16 gives you a general capital assets as of November 30th, composed of land improvements, vehicles. Total capital assets, $11.8 million. That concludes financials. Do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Question on the increase in the sales tax receipts from 18 to 19 of roughly 300,000. Maybe an obvious question, but any highlights you want to mention there on that increase?
I'm sorry, what page was that?
I'm sorry, number 5.
You mean like a specific segment? Market segment?
Just what was it that was that brought in more sales tax? Is that amount?
Retail, retail is the one that was heavy on the increase. Retail and utilities, for some reason, those two are the ones that had the highest increase. There is a breakdown of this that denotes what the increases are, but it's generally retail's the ones that have been higher.
Utilities. I didn't realize utilities had sales tax. Is that right?
Yeah, for some reason now there's a utilities portion that's up there.
And was there anything in your review that led to some success that Brownsville has done from a retail perspective, or?
It's quite, we didn't really analyze it to that level because it's broken down at the general retail, wholesale, various categories. We haven't drilled down to the actual levels. We'll do some analysis on that to see what we can come up with.
If there's a success to report, it'd be nice to say Brownsville did something proper and got a boost from something or another, or
Oh, we'll look into that to get you.
if it's notable.
Yes.
Like, it's $300,000, it's significant.
Yes, we'll double check on that.
Okay.
Get something for next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Granado? Comments? On the motion to acknowledge,
I make a motion to acknowledge.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Granado, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, on the agenda, would you consider, I understand that Mr. Wolf has a short time, but you don't have much time with us for this meeting?
I'm good so far.
And, because there's an agenda item you requested for the organizational chart agenda, and it's an executive session agenda. It should be quick. Request if consideration to go to executive now and then come back and pick up on the agenda items.
Do we have anyone waiting for this item number 5 in the audience? Can you do that?
I don't believe anybody in number 5. I do know we have representation from the city here for item number 6.
Anybody want to move to that first?
We could move up to item number 6.
Two.
And actually number 8 as well, and then we can go into executive after that.
So item number 6?
To
I'm sorry? Nobody from number 5? Perfect.
To Mr. Graham's point, one of the executive agenda items is also relevant to number 5.
Okay, so
Okay, so we'll move number 5 down. That's fine. Number 6.
Item number 6, discussion, consideration, and possible action on City of Brownsville request to support a digital divide study.
Mr. Ramiro, can you find him? Mr. Gonzalez, is it? Mr. Chair and Board, this is a city requested item. Essentially, it's good that the city and the mayor have moved the digital divide issue into an item that they're interested in. In my opinion, as I emailed you some information earlier in the week, in my opinion, digital divide and broadband has become an issue from education and workforce development perspective, and has become a hurdle for us to create a relevant, skilled workforce for the projects that we bring in. So I think Ramiro's here to explain exactly what this request is, but my point is that I think it's relevant to part of our strategic plan in education and workforce development.
Chair, members, the request is, well, the idea is really quite simple. Brownsville has been named probably the least connected city in the United States. Like Mario said, this is an economic development issue. It's an issue that touches all of us at one point or another, and this whole city. We've met the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas has been an active participant in trying to push this, not only in Brownsville but along the border, as a way to get people connected and the future of economic development. So we've had 2 meetings. The last meeting was December 7th. We have all the stakeholders at the table. We have all the public agencies at the table. And the need became quite apparent for a strategic infrastructure plan. And so that is really the next step in the journey to trying to figure out how we're going to tackle this issue. So there are multiple ways of tackling the broadband issue. There's a myriad of public-private partnerships, just a long list of ways to do it, to tackle the issue. But we really need, the first step in this thing is strategic infrastructure plan. So what the plan will do is it'll look at the current assets, future growth, and how we tackle that issue. And then start to look at, well, how do we build a network? Once we choose a specific route, a specific strategy, it could be a wholly municipally owned broadband, fiber all the way to the home. It could be building a trunk line that ISPs then connect to and then pay us a franchise fee. It could look in all kinds of ways. But the request is simple. The request is for a partnership. We've sent out 6 letters, 6 agencies for $21,000. And so we're trying to get up to about $125,000 budget for this plan. And so you are actually the first one on the agenda. But we met with PUB earlier. We met with BISD earlier. And so BCIC is going to be I think, in January. And so I think all the players will come together to fund this plan and to move forward.
Do we know how long it'll take?
We actually reached out to the Port of Brownsville as well. Those are one of the agencies.
So we have PUB, BCIC, BISD, TSC, Port of
and the
Brownsville,
COB, obviously.
and City of
And
Brownsville.
city, yeah, of course. The city is also participating in the 21. So
What's your timeline for getting the infrastructure plan finalized?
the timeline is, if we have commitment, we'll put out the RFQ in January. It'll be 30 days, let's say a 30-day review process from there. So I would anticipate having, let's say, consultants on the ground sometime in late March, early April. And then I would have a plan. Have a plan sometime September, October, November at the latest. That's pretty aggressive timeline, but I think we could do it.
Is this all that's going to be required, or is going to be more money after that?
Well, depending on what we choose as a group, right? I think the idea is to tackle this issue as a community, right? All hands on deck, all agencies on deck. And so, yes, the simple answer is yes, there will be additional investment. What that looks like, we don't know, right? But in order to tackle the issue, we will have to invest in this.
Ramiro, didn't they have a similar initiative in Round Rock?
There's the most successful initiative is Mount Bellevue in Houston, just outside of Houston.
What happened there?
They decided to go a full municipally owned broadband. So Mount Bellevue is a affluent neighborhood, affluent suburb of Houston, and that had connectivity issues. And so they had the wherewithal and the community support to go and build their own municipal broadband network to the house, right? So you're paying, the internet bill you're paying is to Mount Bellevue, not AT&T or Verizon or any other internet service.
From what I was told earlier, they did not have a municipal utility company before that. So
Yeah,
that
so we have a huge advantage. What the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas has told us is the advantage that we have, much like other cities, is we have a municipally owned utility. And so the right-of-way is there. We have, I mean, that is an advantage in this case. And so, I think it's a very doable thing to do.
So are we theoretically working towards like some sort of discounted or even free access for a lot of the residents? Because I don't think that
I think
there's
the study
service
was,
providers out there, but they are charged. So I think a lot of the residents could just get internet service providers to come provide.
so it's a two-prong issue. It's infrastructure, right? Broadband deployment, and then there's digital inclusion, right? And I think the inclusion, and this study would cover both, is, the inclusion would be, okay, how much are we going to pay, right? Or how much is the end user going to pay, right? And I think that depends, once again, it depends on the model we choose, right? If you choose if you wholly municipal owned, that might be one rate. If you choose public-private, that might be another rate. So I think we have to go through this process, let the process play out, and let the process take its course. And we're gonna cover that issue.
Okay.
But yes, that is on the mind. I mean, that's the reason some neighborhoods don't have it, because the Spectrums and the AT&Ts of the world don't want to provide it because they don't have people that will pay.
So now that we're talking about the actual broadband, right, there's also going to be the question of hardware. So even though a lot of people have phones at their house, I think the biggest gap and the biggest need is for students, school-age students, so the BISD idea, whatever the case is. If they're doing homework and they have internet access, but they're trying to do a report on a phone, I think I'd like to see if the report can include some plan for getting hardware into the hands of those students, or just
I mean,
acknowledging that.
That's not necessarily, I mean, it could. That's not to say that, that's obviously going to be a consideration when you talk about serving students, serving homes. That digital inclusion piece,
Yeah.
I think will be, it'll definitely touch on that, because not only is it about how much is the internet, but you're right, providing the ability to access that internet through a device.
It's like having a charger for an electric car in Alaska, right? It's like, cool,
So-
but no charging.
Maybe a second stage deal where you need to bring in other partners to be able to support that, like groups like Apple and Microsoft
Sure.
and so forth, that may want to, the Bill Gates Foundation, whatever it may be, try to get those people to think on the hardware side. I had a question prior to, wanted to make that comment. If we agree to support and be a part of this process, do we actually play a role in being able to opinionate on this as well? Sure. Okay.
I mean, the idea is that this is a financial contribution, but you can be as involved as you want, or as a board or as a staff, or you can be as disconnected as you want, right? We currently put out an RFQ, for the zoo master plan. They're involved in the decision in the procurement process, right? They have 4 board members that are involved, that are going to be step by step involved in the procurement process from day one, right? So we always invite anybody to come to the table. You can be part of the procurement process. And like I said, however much involvement, or however much or however little involvement you want to have, we always welcome.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for making up a word there. Should have been a pine instead of opinionated.
Our strategic economic plan does show that we have a commitment to invest in infrastructure and workforce development. This initiative does align with our economic development strategy. I just would like to have our executive director involved.
Absolutely.
And I know Mario was there at Saturday's meeting, so, like I said, we welcome as much as involvement as possible.
I'd like to move to approve designation of these funds towards this master plan.
I have a motion, and I have a second.
Yep.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Let's skip to item number 8, please.
Item number 8, discussion, consideration and possible action on proposed amendments to the GBIC bylaws.
Sure, this was a agenda item that was brought up by 2 of the GBIC board members related to an entry on the recently adopted GBIC bylaws.
Yes, Chairman, I was at a meeting here with, when the City Commission proposed that the bylaws be approved subject to a no more than 1 commissioner on our board. I think this is a very new board. I would like to propose that we respond back to that request or that subject matter to allow us the opportunity to integrate and provide them the results that they want us. I think we were all elected for a reason. We need to deliver results, and that's what they're expecting out of this board. So I'd like for us to respond in that manner.
From my understanding and the discussion earlier, it's not mandating that there be 1 commission member on the board. It's just saying that there can be no more than 1.
Understood?
So what do you recommend, or what do you think?
No,
we should
I think it would
consider?
be, in my opinion, and it's just me speaking, we're all new. We just are integrating ourselves into this new board, and I think the concern from the City Commission might be that they want us to provide the results and give them what our plan is. What is it that we're working on, so that they don't have that concern? I think we owe it to the Commission as well. That might be the reason why they're asking for that no more than. And I know it's not obligatory, but I think we also need to deliver those results to the City Commission.
And you think that the bylaws are preventing that?
No, but I do
Is the
think,
recommendation that we invite?
no, the city is approving the bylaws subject to it, including no more than 1 city commissioner on the board with voting power.
But the suggestion currently is not to add 1.
Exactly,
It's just, they would like to have that in their
exactly,
future purpose.
yes.
Well, my reaction to this was that, based on historical experience, I had a real negative initial reaction against it, because I just think you start adding too many city commissioners, and we lose our independence. And to the extent that you have 1 out of 7, well, that's not going to make that much difference. But if it was going to be 2 or more, based on what I've seen happen in the past, I'd be totally against it.
Okay.
I would agree with that comment, Dennis, but does it, and not having been a part of the discussion, does it not generate somewhat of a conflict of interest for a city commissioner to sit on the GBIC board? I mean, the potential, the other day I had to recuse myself of a vote on a legal representation for the board. I would just think that would get awfully close to a city commissioner having the power that they have in a commission seat, and at the same time voting on potential funding of projects. I don't know enough about the interaction between the 2 to say that would be my concern, though.
Well, I think it's a very valid concern, because it may not be a legal conflict of interest, but you have political issues, political pressures being put on city commissioners, if they come in on the board, whereas right now the board, we're not elected.
Yes.
So
And the other
we don't have to
thing,
worry about what our vote's gonna be, if it's gonna make some segment of the voting block mad or not, but when you're a city commissioner and you're sitting on this board, you have other issues that you have to consider that are apart from just black and white financial decisions.
And the other thing that, if I may add, is that we are now in collaboration with the city and BCIC, collaborating on our economic development plan. So I think that's also a significant change towards the positive, as we're collaborating and making decisions together to bring those opportunities for the community. So that's something that maybe the city may not be aware of, or maybe doesn't know the depth of what we're doing together with the city and BCIC.
I would think this would take a little bit more consideration from the standpoint that, I mean, we've all discussed it, that to your point, we've been put here for a purpose, we've been, or not put here, we were asked to be a part of this for a purpose.
By the commission.
By the commission, and, you know, with history in play that we all know about, I think keeping a little bit of an arm's length of being a very independent board, that, you know, that's important at this particular point in time. If we make a decision to, whether it's take on more real estate or develop an industrial park or give out funding, I think it's imperative that it be viewed as clean and free of politics.
Well, I guess my question would be to legal, actually, as far, number one, where we are with the bylaws, with the current bylaws, and second, we know that we were appointed and asked to serve on these boards by the city commission, and I guess my question would be, if they so decide, one or two or none or whatever it may be, they're the ones that hand our bylaws down to us. Is that correct?
Actually, it's a two-step process. The bylaws can be amended, but it must be mutually amended. It starts off here and/or at the city commission, but both bodies must approve of the final version of the bylaws. So at this point, the version that's before you is the final version with the subject to language that the city commission approved, which is to allow them to appoint not more than one member of the city commission on the board. Everything else has been pre-approved by this board, with the exception of that last item.
And what was the previous edition where it excluded commissioners?
The previous version excluded any member of the elected body. This one would allow them no more than one appointment, should they desire.
Elected commission body?
That's correct.
Well, then I think that something that's just brought up is, if they do appoint a city commissioner, that person is going to have to be acutely aware of the fact that they're going to have to recuse themselves on any voting dealing with the city at all. For instance, the airport loan that GBIC guaranteed, they'd have to recuse themselves from all of that. So, I mean, it's a two-edged sword here.
And you have to ask yourself the question, is it for transparency or is it for influence, the request to be on the board? I mean, if it's for transparency, I think there's many other ways around transparency than actually being inclusive. If it's to be able to weigh some sort of influence over votes, and I don't mean that in a crude sense that, you know, there's something amiss, but I think that needs to be taken into consideration. If it's just a matter of being able to want to know more in depth about what's going on with the GBIC board, you know, we can do that. But if it's a matter of wanting to have a position on the board to be able to influence board vote,
Well, that'd be a problem in and of itself, even whether it's a commission member or not. Yes, I don't know.
well, I mean, I'm on the board to be able to influence decisions that this board agrees upon, right? But I have no connection to the city. I have no connection to other purposes other than volunteering my time to be able to help make decisions that further the cause of Brownsville. But I'm at the same time not in city government. That would be my concern. Not that I'm saying that I'm opposed to it. I'd just like to understand the intent for that being included.
So when I was on BCIC, we did have a commissioner and still do. I didn't think there was any conflict. It was actually there are many people that are more informed than city commissioners, basically in the city. It was kind of helpful to to have someone who said, oh yeah, someone else is already looking at this project, maybe we could collaborate with them, or.
That would be a benefit without a doubt.
I don't really see the need to exclude commissioner, especially if it's already limited to one.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that, if we do accept that we make a motion that the voting, in the case of what you guys have just brought up, is that they recuse themselves from any voting that relates to city decisions, because that's why we are here. And in any case where there's a conflict, that's my concern. We have a responsibility to serve and better the cause for the community. That is why we're here.
So there's a motion on the floor to accept the amendments
Without
provided to us by
voting.
the city commission, but only
With
that
no
they cannot,
voting power.
no voting power?
Yeah, because
Anything related
most
to-
of the decisions we're making
I
are
mean,
to.
I'd like to defer to legal to give us his opinion on that, just to make sure that they're fine. And then, if you so move, we do get a second and it does pass, does it go back to the city
It
commission?
has to go to the city.
Yeah, the request from the city commission doesn't create a legal conflict. Now, if the members of this board have other intentions and other interests, then yes, it would have to go back to the city commission for approval. They have to approve it by resolution, which is what the law requires. But yes, if you want to add language that is now countering language, then it would have to go onto their agenda by resolution and be approved and adopted as you proposed. And if it doesn't get approved, now we're going to have to defer back and operate under the old set of bylaws until
Commission approves.
until both bodies can come together and find a version that they both approve.
Well, we do have a motion on the table. Do we have a motion on the floor? Do we have a second?
So, just so I'm clear, the motion is to ask to approve it, but based that the city commissioner be on an ex officio basis?
Yes.
As it concerns to city,
No, I think what she wants is, if they sit on here and there's a.
City-related
Yeah, there's
item.
city-related, they don't
That they
vote.
recuse themselves.
And I think that's gonna be hard, because most of the things we see have to do
well,
with.
you're assuming a conflict. You can't just assume that there's a real conflict of interest.
Oh, no, no, I'm
because
just saying
it's a
what
city.
she's putting
I
on
know,
the table.
that's my concern with
And,
that, but I
and,
guess we can't discuss.
and I think
it.
the way things are set up now is that most of the projects that might come go to the city commission for approval, and the budget goes to the city commission for approval. So it could create an issue where that appointment would be conflicted on most items that go to the city commission. So,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the
It's a question of
language.
legal, and not that we need to mimic anybody else's infrastructure, but how do most of other cities handle this? Do most other cities with economic development groups such as GBIC, do they have commissioners sitting on their boards?
Yeah, most of them do. In fact, the type Bs, last I remember, type Bs actually had a statutory limit on how many commissioners you could have on the board. I think it was maybe up to 3. So depending on legislative restrictions, yes, most of them do actually have elected officials on their board. So it's not uncommon, but based on what I hear, it could create a conflict almost every time an item goes from here to that body.
Well, GBIC itself had, I believe it was 3 city commissioners sitting on a board of 5, no more than a year ago. Is that right, Mario?
I think it was 2.
That's right. And then I believe
it was Jessica Tetreau, Cesar, Rick Longoria, and there was only 5 members on the.
And that's a perception problem. I mean, if I saw that as a citizen, I'd be looking at that and saying, okay, well,
But as of right
why
now,
have individual boards? So let me ask you this, does the board have a process of being able to remove a member if 5 of you decide that I'm in somebody's pocket and I'm not making decisions or input to this board, is there a way of removing me from this board?
The city commissioners can remove any of us at any point.
How about this board?
I don't know.
Yes.
They can remove
Yes.
it.
in the new bylaws?
We
Yeah,
put in
no,
a supermajority.
Yeah. Type A and Type B corporate members serve at the will of the elected body.
Okay,
Are
so
we able to
so-
discuss this with the motion on the floor?
No, I know they can't, but can the 4 of you for the five of you, decide that I'm not performing as I should be performing and carry a motion to
The only thing-
remove me from the board.
No.
What I would say, Mr. Wolf, I know we're veering off a little bit from the motion on the floor. I think that would be a discussion that we would have to have with legal at a different date.
I'd like to just remove my motion because I think we need to have legal look into this and maybe.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw your
Yes, I
motion?
withdraw.
No, so, Mr. Chairman, where I'm going with that is that if there is a path of recourse for something that we see getting out of hand, it somewhat mitigates my concern about having a commissioner sitting on the board. If it's going to lend, as Mr. Graham said, that you know, this is going to be a positive thing for the board, then fantastic, right? Let's move forward with it because they bring input, they bring knowledge, they bring so forth, they even make us better as good. If it starts to tilt the other way and there's a process for removal, I think that gives us the wherewithal to be able to handle that situation. If it would be.
So are you suggesting that if we do allow up to one commissioner on the board, that we then also add that this board can remove a board member with the majority vote?
I guess my question was, is that possible
Well,
today?
this board can always make a recommendation to the elected body, but the elected body appoints and removes members from this body.
I just think that that's dangerous also, because when there were 3 commissioners, they could just remove anyone who they didn't want on.
Well, what we do have from the city is
They still can grant.
they only, what they ask
From the
is,
commission, not from the board, you know?
the only amendment that they had from the bylaws that we reviewed in the bylaw committee was the addition of no more than one city commissioner. And that's what we have been sent back now. I think it would, as far as the board goes, right now, what we have to do is adopt them or not adopt them.
Well, also, but this contemplates in approving this, then the city has to remove one of the 7 board members, right?
No, it would be that they have the option to have a commissioner serve on
It's
this
not
board.
mandating.
No,
that-
It's not saying we need one right now, it's not saying one has to be on at all times. It's just saying if there's an opening, or if somebody is taken off, or whatever the situation may be, a city commissioner can serve on this board.
Doesn't mandate, it just says no more than
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Legal? So any other questions or comments?
So why did you want to remove your motion?
Because it's obvious that there'll still be a conflict of interest every time we're making a decision and having to vote. This always has to do with the city. So, you know, we either accept it or we return it saying we don't want that.
But you can't
Exception.
just say that there is automatically a conflict, because you
Well,
don't really know.
I think there will be conflicts in certain instances, but not,
yes, not all the
in
time.
every instance.
I wasn't comfortable accepting it, saying that they cannot vote on anything that overlaps with the city, because everything overlaps with the city at some point. I mean, I feel that you've been a great asset in discussing issues that overlap with the port. That doesn't mean that I think you're in conflict at any point in your votes, for example.
No, and I feel that anything that
And then the
even
other-
remotely conflicted, I would
If everybody's
abstain.
comfortable with the exception, it's
Now, are
not.
we only voting on one?
That's the only.
That's the only amendment?
That's the only
made?
amendment that was
That's right.
placed.
Well, then I would make a motion that we approve this with the addition that the commissioner cannot vote in a conflict of interest situation.
Which is in here also. That's already part of the bylaws.
So we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I got an eye too.
Motion carries.
Did it, those, did
It's
1, 2, 3?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay,
Aye. Motion carries.
cool. Now what?
So just to clarify, now the process is, it goes back to
Well,
the city
now it's
commission.
approved, because
Yes.
that was their
All we
edit.
need to do is execute it, and they execute it, and it's now binding.
It's a document.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 9.
Closed session, or are we doing?
For Mr. Wolf. I know he's got to get going.
Item number 9.
6:11, we're moving pretty good. If you want to go ahead and hit 5 and wrap up, I mean, that's,
Okay,
might as well go ahead and do that. Chairman.
Well, that's the thing, is 5 is tied to
Or
one of
this?
the executive session
Okay.
items.
Okay.
Item number 9.
9.
Closed session. In accordance with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, the Board of Directors hereby gives notice that it may meet in a closed non-public session to discuss the items listed on the public portion of the meeting agenda, including items 4 through 8, in accordance with the following below. Pursuant to Section 71, Section 072, Section 074, Section 075, Section 084, and Section 087, and 089.
Motion to.
We just go over it.
I did motion.
We're
Motion second.
Move over there, executive session.
Motion carries.
Who motion?
Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, what do we do? Move to reconvene?
Do you need to comment on
I believe,
the chairman having to excuse
okay,
himself?
yeah, so chairman had a family emergency, had to excuse himself, and we also were told Nick Schaefer will be excused for a hospital visit operation, I believe.
Medical emergency, yeah.
So,
So his absence is.
Just to make it part of the record that he
Yeah.
was previously excused from the meeting, he did notify the board that he was going to not make it.
so do you want me to go to the reconvene, item number 10?
Yes, please.
Reconvene for possible action on any items as discussed in executive session and those that are listed on the public portion of the agenda.
No action.
There's no action on that, I believe. Was there? Okay, yeah, so we'll move to 5. We're going back to 5.
Okay. Item number 5, discussion, consideration, and possible action on payment of economic development incentives regarding the performance agreement for National Electric Oil.
Good evening, Board. I just wanted to give you a quick update on National Electric Coil. This is an expansion project. This was started in November of last year, and I know since then, a lot of board members are new, so I just want to give you guys an update on what that project was. National Electric Coil is a company that started operations here in Brownsville in 1996. They are headquartered currently in Columbus, Ohio. When we discussed with them, when we started discussions with them, they had a baseline employment of 221, and in the contract, it states that they're going to create 129 jobs, and this is within the 3-year period. They also stated they're going to add an additional $4 million in equipment for these new hires that they're going to do. Okay? This is their current facility. It's on 14th Street, and it is within the Brownsville city limits. What they do is they remanufacture large motors and alternators for the energy sector. So as you see the one on the left there, that's the way they receive them, and then they work their magic on them, and then on the one on the right is how they send them back out. Okay? So the performance agreement, there are two sections of it. So one of it is job creation, and the second one is job training, and I'll go over each one individually. Okay, job creation. We had a schedule with them because their wage rates we're going to differ, and you see the schedule right there. And as you see, the higher the wage, the more of an incentive we provided. The lower the wage, the less of incentive. The first year's performance, and I'll show that with you a little later, is 39 jobs have qualified for the job creation incentive. Okay? Job training.
Sorry, Ramiro, do you have those identified as to what categories those 39 jobs are in, by
Yes, I
chance?
do. Yes, I do. That'll be in the summary.
Okay.
at the end, Okay?
Perfect, thank
Again,
you.
this is a 3-year duration of the deal. So within 3 years, they're going to create all those jobs you see on the far left at the wage rates that are identified. Okay. Job training. So this one, GBIC approved the payment of $2,500 for every job, no matter what the wage rate is at that point. The only caveat there is that they have to be Brownsville residents. okay? Because we want to train Brownsville residents so that they can move up higher, right? The year one performance was 100 for them, okay? And this is the summary that you asked about, Mr. Wolf.
Sure.
So as you can see on the top, that's the breakdown. So they had 14 at 9 and so on and so forth. So those 39 qualified jobs equal to 82,500. You can see the per job incentive at every wage range right there, right? The next one is the job training incentive. 100 Brownsville residents qualified, and at 2,500 each, that's 250,000. And as you can see there, I kind of added how much each trainee receives in training funds, right? So every trainee is given $4,080 worth of training, if you will. So we're reimbursing 2,500 of that for each Brownsville resident. So if you see at the bottom, the total jobs created was 106, so they're now at 327, but 6 of those were not Brownsville residents, so they didn't qualify for that incentive there. So together with the creation and with the incentive, the total number is 332,500, and that is what they qualify for, and that's what we're asking for today. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
So the training, out of those 100, what happens to those other 61? Are they still in the pipeline, or are they getting ready to go to?
What do you mean?
Because you train 100, is what
Yes.
it's, I mean 106, but 100 Brownsville residents,
Right.
and they only created 39 jobs.
I can explain that.
Can you?
Because sometimes when we sit with them and we ask them to consider training some current employees
Okay.
and moving them up so they can leave gaps and move people in there. Right? So they've
Okay.
done a lot of that, and they filled in 39 of those, right? So, but they still have to fill in more in their performance for the next 2 years. So to answer your question, yeah, the numbers look kind
Yeah, they
of
look,
funny.
I mean, they,
But it's some that are already lower skilled, and they skill them up so that we can create gaps for new employees. So that's that particular item.
I read part of Mr. Cardenas's question to be, of those 100 people, are they all employed at the company
Yes,
currently?
yes.
Okay.
And they're Brownsville
I think that's
citizens.
Yeah, kind of.
50 of them off doing something
No,
else.
they're all employed
and
there,
working
and they're all
okay.
Brownsville citizens.
Right. Some of them are with an agency, but they are employed there.
So they were existing employees, and they got more training, and then they also happened to hire 39 new
There's a variation,
individuals.
there's always some that didn't qualify on the wage, but they were higher, so there's 2 different performance.
And did those people that were trained, did they move up in category of pay? Do you know?
I don't know exactly, but we can look at that, and that wasn't on the performance agreement. Our performance agreement is just, are they Brownsville citizens, are you hiring them, and we're only gonna train Brownsville citizens.
Okay, that is a good addition to future contracts, because that
That
was
might
gonna
be,
be a
yeah, I
question.
mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're paying, there should be benefit. So what do they qualify for in the next 2 years in terms of incentives?
So, as you can see here, in terms of job creation,
So 245,000 in job creation for the next 2 years plus?
no, they've already received 82,500.
They're
So-
eligible.
So you,
Okay.
right, so they're eligible.
Here, they're eligible for that, and we're
but
gonna
in
pay
training,
out
they
for
can
it.
keep training and training?
The training is up to 295,000, so they.
So they're basically almost maxed out on that one?
Almost, yeah, so they've.
45,000
gotten
left
100,
on that.
And they're allotted 129, so there are 29 more slots left for that one. Over the next
course
2
of
years.
Okay.
Over the next
They
2
pretty
years.
much ate up most of.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if we were gonna have to pay more.
So,
No, this is one time for each.
so when they train these employees, this extra training, they're already existing employees that just get more training on what they're doing, but they don't necessarily get elevated in their wage rates?
This is training for the new employees that are hired, right?
No,
No,
because
I
we
think
only,
that is
we only
they
hired 39 new
confirmed.
employees.
No, they did, they hired 106.
It's 106
For-
jobs
For the
created.
job creation, only 39 qualified, because the rest are below $9 an hour.
I see.
See that?
Okay, so we're hiring 109, we're training them, but they don't qualify for the extra incentive?
That's right,
Okay.
that's right.
Correct.
and this obviously isn't part of the right discussion, but so that we don't forget, from that training piece, probably would be there needs to be some sort of performance, that you didn't just train somebody more and more and more on the same thing, but that they actually elevated themselves through the training that we funded.
That's correct, and that's part of our conversation. Sometimes, especially in these cases, they're unique jobs.
And
And-
maybe that's something we could ask the employer to kick in, because, hey, we're training them to take them to the next level, you gotta
Yeah.
pay them at the next level.
Right. So where I was going, Mr. Sanchez, sometimes they're unique jobs, and so we can't find these guys, and we say, well, how about you up these guys up there with some training, and that way, so that's kind of the conversations that we have. Because it's very difficult to go find a new one. Instead of you would have one that's kind of half-trained, let's move them up.
So for this item, you're looking for a motion to approve the $250,000 payment, is that correct?
332.5, because the job
Oh, I thought
creation,
they had already gotten the 82, I thought.
No, the 82 is actually on the table right now. That's what they qualified for, 8250 plus 250,000.
And you're telling us that they've complied with the request that was made, that was approved?
that's correct. And we went ahead and audited their reports right here, and this is what the summary is about. And, you guys are free to
So it
read
certainly
this
seems
anytime.
as if nobody has any objection to the fact that they've complied with their agreement, then I
Right,
would say.
Mr. Wolf, if I may, what we do is we sit with their HR and whomever they want to bring, and Ramiro there has all the documents, and we go employee by employee, how much do they make, where do they live, and then we say yes, no, and then the end result is what you see on the screen.
You've audited it,
All right,
Vice Chair, if you want to,
do we have a motion to approve?
yeah, I'll motion to approve the request.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we skip to,
7.
You have one
I
last
think we
one.
missed 7, right?
Staff reports.
Item number 7, discussion, consideration, and acknowledgement of GBIC Executive Director and staff reports regarding recent activities and progress related to current ongoing projects.
Before I call Ramiro back up here, this is 7. You have in your packet the typical information that we typically provide, but I wanted to draw your attention to the some items. Specifically, Ramiro and I went to that consultants forum you see on page 2, and then Mr. Sevier, Graham, and Sandra was there too. We shared some of our findings with the joint meeting that we have with City of Brownsville, BCIC. We brought some leads back from that, and together between BCIC and the city and us, we'll put together a response packet, as we mentioned earlier. We had, going down the list, we did have that mixer. Some of you attended, thank you for that, and we had a pretty good attendance, knowing that there's a lot of events going on daily between the holidays. That was a success in my opinion. We had a meeting with STMA, the South Texas Manufacturers Association. We've convinced them to put a chapter in Cameron County because we think that there's a lot of activity here. There's not enough presence from a manufacturing association on this side of the border, like there is on this side of the border. So we asked them to bring a satellite or a chapter to Cameron County, and they did. So this was the second meeting that they've had so far, and it's been growing. So their membership, South Texas Manufacturers Association in Cameron County, has been growing, and that's going to be very helpful for us because we can use them as a vehicle to tell our story. You can see the communication social media page, but we went ahead and included also in the back part a lot of the information from the consultants forum. You can read it on your own time. But what we wanted to do is do a quick overview of a recruitment update for you, and also a business retention update for you. Since it's kind of the end of the year, last meeting of the year, kind of give you a quick overview of what that looked like, and then share with you then what would it look like as we create targets in January and the implementation strategies and the like, and it'll be relevant to what you're going to get here just now.
Thank you, Mr. Osoya. As Mr. Lozoya mentioned, we just want to give you a quick update. First, I wanted to talk to you about some site visits we had this month. We have Project DC come in, they're an IT company. They're seeking an acre of location for their operations. They're going to create up to 5 jobs. You know, IT companies don't create a lot of jobs, but they have a huge investment of $30 million. And they're also a large power user, so PUB is happy to talk to them, tell you that.
If I can iterate, in this case, although it's not a lot of jobs, the money will be in the property tax with the investment of 30 million and the PUB power use.
Now, on something like that, do they have to stay inside Brownsville and not use, let's say, Magic Electric or whatever they're called? Will they use PUB?
Yes, they will use PUB. The location they've identified is a PUB, yeah. Yes. And so they've actually made an offer on a site, and it's within the Brownsville city limits. It's within PUB's certified area. So they're just in discussions right now for that site, so it's very exciting. Another project that we had actually coming to town from outside is Project Stone. They're a manufacturer of components that are used in the energy sector. The client is seeking about 25 acres to construct approximately 200,000 square foot facility, and their capital investment is about 150 million on this one. Jobs are still to be determined because they're looking for site right now, but again, this one is also a very exciting project for us.
How long in the process of selection are they in?
They've identified several sites in Brownsville. I believe they're also looking at other states and in Mexico. So right now they're in the site selection process, and they're doing their due diligence on other sites.
Yes, I talked to their consultant that they hired, and Ramiro's right, they're looking at Louisiana, New Mexico, Texas, and Matamoros. However, out of all those sites, the consultant's telling me that he feels pretty comfortable that 2 of the Brownsville sites are on top of the list. And so I've asked permission to let his client tell us when can we bring him in and get in front of PUB, city, and everybody together so we can make the sale and hopefully bring it in. So that's the next step.
So with these 2 added on there, year to date, we've had 19 different projects that we've identified 16 different projects that we've identified as true leads, right? With 10 of them having site visits that actually came to Brownsville and viewed the site, and 4 letters of intent that we've got going on with them. We've also got leads from the state, 3 of which we qualified to respond to, and one of those leads came and visited Brownsville.
So, Mr. Wolf, to your point earlier, this is one of our filtering process. Some of them are just would not make any sense for us to respond to. And sometimes we've been getting leads, and the lead might say, looking at a northern state region, and so we shouldn't respond to it. So of all the leads that Ramiro assessed from the state, those were viable leads, those 4 of them, and resulted into a visit. So those are actually good numbers.
So the state puts us in the same category as Houston because we're on the coast, and a lot of them, their area of interest is Houston and up, right? So we don't respond to those because of just time. But we did respond to 3, and one of them actually came and visited us, so that's exciting. The other 2 are still in the process. And then, of course, we have the retention and dispatch program. I'm not going to go too far into this because Carla's going to talk about it, but we actually got 6 leads from local companies that are interested in actually either growing or expanding. And 3 of them actually went and saw our properties where they could potentially expand to.
Did they also look at the city of Brownsville properties, or just our properties?
Well, just our properties, the city of Brownsville, these are for land. They're looking for land to expand.
Oh, just raw land?
Right.
Okay.
And so the city of Brownsville's land, I believe, is at the airport. We do provide that information to them, but at this point, these were more interested in the raw land out in the industrial park. Okay. So for the year, and this is just the leads we got for 2019, is 19 qualified leads, 14 different site visits, and 4 LOIs. So we had a pretty busy year this year.
So what we use this information to then create a baseline, and then assess it, and then create 2020 targets based on the baseline.
And I just want to mention back to Bobbin, the recruitment. They're actually at the final stages of the permitting. We've finished our contract with them. So we should be seeing construction in the North Brownsville Industrial Park for the first time in about 12 years, so that's a great thing.
That's great.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Today I'm going to give you an update about BRE. We're working very hard and we're putting a lot of events together, and this is in regards of helping the industry engagement. We have had a visit from the governor's office. We also did 2 industry-led forums as well as an industry appreciation mixer, among others events that we have been doing. This is with the purpose to engage our industry partners. Also, in the social media aspect for BRE, we have showcased our partners by doing different posts about their companies and some of the projects that they're working on, as well as some of the projects that we have here in Brownsville, and showcasing what we have here in Brownsville as well. We have seen a tremendous increase on our Facebook likes. We've seen a 90% increase. Also, in the engagement of people, we have reached more engagement, up to 75%. So if you can see from the beginning of the year, we were around 20%. Now we're up to 90% in all the the efforts that we're doing with the social media. Now, when it comes to the BRE visits, we have a yearly target of 50 visits. Up to now, we have done 40 visits, taking in consideration that we started the program on April. For every month, we should do 4 visits, and we're exceeding and even surpassing that goal every month. Like Ramiro was mentioning, out of these visits, we have engaged with our partners. We have get them to know more what GBIC is doing for them and how can we better assist them. We have developed 6 expansion projects that we're currently working on, and also 3 possible skill development grants. So those are very exciting news to share, and definitely the team is working really hard to help out Brownsville, especially the industry. Do you have any questions for me?
Carla, what kind of feedback are you getting from the visits that you make to the businesses? Are they wanting to expand, or are they not wanting to? What's their desire for growth?
It all depends, depending on the market. Some companies, it's not the time for them to invest because they're going through some changes, some problems right now. So it's not time for them to invest and move forward. But some other companies are very excited. We do have a project going on that they're looking into bringing more revenue here and actually expanding their, all the services and everything, because it's a good time. So it's all depending on the market for them. And then also, I see that it's a prosperous look. People are actually excited to come in Brownsville, and for even some of the companies that are in Matamoros, they're actually looking to come here. Some of them. So,
Are the existing companies aware of the amenities that are being offered by GBIC, the incentives? Are by and large, do they know what they are before you meet with them, or do you have to educate them?
No, I have to, with the help of the team, we have to educate them, because some of them sometimes are not aware what GBIC is doing, or some of the things that we're working on. But when I go there, I have all my marketing materials, and there's a process that we follow. So I introduce them to GBIC when we do all the services that we offer, and then from there we follow up with a visit with the director of recruitment, and then if it's needed, we follow up with a visit with the executive director. So that way they get to know the staff, they get to know their local EDO, and not only that, they get to know all the services that we're doing and all the other things that we can help with, including like the permits and other services that we offer as well.
Mr. Sanchez, to your point, BRE didn't exist, in the last few years. So there's a lot of companies that don't know what GBIC is and what they do. So Carla's she takes with her a packet and coaches them on what we have available for them. She engages in a survey in every visit. So we'll put together all these questions that she asks and the answers from the survey, and then we'll create a database and share with you what are the top issues that we hear from this BRE visits, and we'll share them with the board. Because it's very telling that we weren't doing our job in the last few years. And you can see the results of 6 potential expansions out of 40-some visits. That number represents a pretty good success rate. And if we can continue that, I think to Mr. Wolf's point earlier, we'll be hitting a lot of singles and doubles with these little expansion projects.
Well, one of the few forums that I've attended, like Texas Workforce Commission, Workforce Solutions forum that they put on,
about?
We met with a particular employer that wasn't really aware of the advantages that company or that institution could bring to them. And I'm wondering whether or not a lot of the other employers in town don't know that they could go and tap into those sources as well, in combination with GBIC.
That's right. You're right, they don't, and the large majority, I would say 95% of them don't, and so we've been trying to school them up on how they can find it, we can help them find these resources to help them upskill their workforce, maybe even apply for grants for equipment and the like, and what's the schoolhouse doing to help them and the like, so we're making all those connections that it wasn't happening before.
Well, good.
I'll pose this as a question to you, Carlos, so it falls into this part of your presentation, but you think it'd be a good idea as part of what we were just discussing from the standpoint of targeting industry, that maybe Carla be able to make a presentation to the board during that workshop that would give us visibility of who we have in town, and maybe so that her efforts can be much more successful in the front end or more immediately, that we lend our opinions on who might be target industries that we may know might need to know more about GBIC so that they can immediately take advantage of what we have to offer and help her in her effort.
Yes, definitely, we have the information, we just haven't formulated into a presentation, and we can do that.
That'd be
And
good.
it's a good
In my
idea to
opinion,
present
that
that.
would be good.
Yes, sir, it's a good idea.
Any other questions for me? Thank you.
Motion to acknowledge.
Move to acknowledge.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 11, adjournment.
Quick question. Legal, do we need to go back and talk about, clarify the motion that was done or passed? Does that need to be done, or?
I don't know if you want to ask Laura to read the motion back just for clarification on the bylaws.
We don't have recording unless we get recording from the city.
Okay, I think the motion was if there was
It was clear, I guess, right?
it related to a conflict of interest scenario in the bylaws, whether it allowed a vote or didn't allow a vote, should there be a member of the city commission appointed. And, you know, we can always go back and ask the city to look at the conflict of interest provision and either modify that or place another restriction on there if that's what the membership
Well, I
wants.
believe since a vote was already casted and approved.
The motion was to include it in the provision that allows up to one commissioner on our board.
Yes, but subject to that commissioner not being able to vote on anything constituting a potential conflict of interest that would involve the city of Brownsville.
That's, okay,
Attached
just,
to that particular portion.
Attached to that particular
City
matter.
matters, not personal matters, which
Right.
are already in the bylaws.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect.
all right, motion adjourned.
Do we have any, can we do announcements real quick? Board announcements, I just want to say happy birthday to all the staff members that have had birthdays this week.
Yeah, so we had a birthday on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Ramiro, happy birthday. Laura had a birthday yesterday. Our executive director's birthday is today, and tomorrow we have Carla's birthday. So
Wow.
the board got together and we got a little present for you guys. So happy birthday,
That was
guys.
convenient how you put that all together, by the way. Thank you.
Makes shopping easier for some,
Exactly.
that's for sure.
Well, happy birthday to all of you.
Happy
Yeah,
birthday
thank
to all
you
of you.
for everything
your
y'all do
hard work.
throughout the year too. Y'all are great. Thank you.
And if you
Motion
were
adjourned?
not aware, we have a new executive assistant.
Yes.
And is there a birthday
Yes,
too?
team.
It's not her
okay.
birthday this week, but
She's on the 21st.
Well, welcome aboard.
Yeah. Awesome, welcome. Move to adjourn?
Yeah.
I'll motion.
All those in favor?
Oh, you did second? My bad. Aye.